Good afternoon and welcome to the November edition of the Manager's Town Hall Meeting Part 1. We've done this one in multiple parts because of the length. As I went through the live meeting, it took about an hour and 30 minutes. I had hoped to be able to shorten that somewhat when I recorded it for the virtual version. In fact, I went every bit as long. So I decided to break it into 3 parts, a little less than 30 minutes each. And that way you can listen to one today, listen to another part tomorrow, or however you want to do it, but at least you get a break in between the sections. So with that, let's go forward. On the November agenda for the first part, we're going to talk a little quick welcome home, some quick replays of news that you need. These are things that we've talked about in the past. Projects, there's still projects underway, so there's more to come in the things we're doing at the resort, disaster planning, and the new lease. So to begin with, we want to say welcome home to all of those that are here on site now. And we have the same welcome waiting for all of you that are yet to come. We hope that you get here safely. We know the weather is turning rather quickly up north, and we hope that your plans are allowing you to be able to safely get your way down here. We've worked hard all summer, and we think the park is looking really good. We can't wait for you to get here, and we're looking forward to an incredible year. A quick replay of some things we've talked about before, but I get continuing questions about. First off, Channel 3. I've done in my virtual meetings kind of an update of the new program that we're using for Channel 3. Feedback has been absolutely positive. I think it's significantly better than what we had in the past. But there has been questions, and the questions are about the scroll, the text that scrolls along the bottom of the screen. In the new program, we have the ability to do what are called RSS feeds. So in fact, in hour 1, we do our Victoria Palms news that we create and post there. In hour 2, we run a CNN headline news feed. And in hour 3, we run a Fox Sports news feed. And so we've been able to apply some variety. So there's good information there while you're still watching our Channel 3. The questions came up about some of the information that's showing there, and some residents thought that perhaps we were placing that information there because in the past that's the only way it could work. In fact, it's CNN headline news and Fox Sports News that's playing there. So the only part that's Victoria Palms produced is the specific things. As I said, this rotates every hour, so each hour there's a different thing up there, and this runs 24 hours a day. Ballroom Floor. If you're here, you've probably seen it. The feedback has been incredibly positive. People love the look and the feel, and the ballroom even sounds different. But I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that it's not complete. In fact, the final finish, the final top coat that was put on it, we did not accept. There are some blemishes, some flaws in it, and before we make our final payment, we're insisting that they come back and refinish it. So it's not going to happen during season. It will happen after season, probably in early April. So I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that if you see some blemishes, we did not accept the finish that we've gotten. Front gate, we're doing some changes to our front gate, and the whole idea is to make it smoother for you to get in, friendlier for guests to get there, and try to just streamline the whole operation there. So first off, uniforms. We're getting rid of the security guard uniforms where they look like police officers. We're actually replacing that with a friendlier approach of a polo shirt, logoed polo shirt with khaki pants or shorts, so that it's much more casual, more resort looking. The guards will still have the same responsibilities. They'll just have a little softer presence especially to guests. We've now opened the second lane to the entrance, and what we're requesting of our residents is only residents with stickers use that outside lane. And even then, you come up to the guard shack and you wait for the guard to motion you through. Don't zoom through there, because we'll end up with an accident, and then that will cause me to have to close that lane off. When I gave this to the resident population that's here at the live meeting, they were very appreciative, and so far I've seen very good adherence to that rule. So, please remember when you get back, that outside lane is for you if you have a sticker, but wait for the guard to just motion you through. You don't have to slow down. And that way, when somebody's here asking directions or information, he's in the inside lane closest to the guard shack. And the guard doesn't have to rush to get him out of the way so that he can let traffic that's building up behind him through. So, it's a good thing for all. Also, make sure you have a current sticker on your windshield. It can't be held in your hand. It can't be, on your dash. It's got to be in the windshield so that that security officer can see over the car that he's talking to and be able to see your sticker. They're very bright. Remember that they're clings. They're not really stickers. We call them stickers, but they don't leave a gooey mess on your windshield. You don't have to scrape them off with a razor blade. They peel right off. And if you save that little backing that's on them, you can stick it right back on that backing when you're not here. Stick it in your glove box, and it'll go right back on your window when you come back. So that's the changes that we have up at the front gate. Darts, we've moved the darts to the ballroom. We've put up new lighting for the dartboards. It's a really, really nice setup with a lot of room. We're hoping that even people that don't throw darts may come up and watch. It's very interesting. Bring your favorite beverage and some snacks and come up and sit down and cheer on your neighbors who are playing darts. Also, we've set up some practice boards back in the old bingo room down in the bottom of the craft center, so that people who don't know how to do it can have a place where they can practice virtually anytime that room's not being used, and hopefully get to like the idea. Bingo, same kind of deal. We moved it to the ballroom. We were just overwhelming that room that we called the bingo room. So we've moved that to the ballroom. It'll be now done on the big screen up at the front of the over the stage. We still have your favorite caller. Doyle will be there doing his one-man comedy show and bingo calling, and we think it'll be a great time. Again, if you haven't been doing it in the past because it was hard to get in there and get a seat, or maybe for you and your spouse to sit together, now you won't have that problem. Grab your favorite beverage, some snacks, and come play bingo. I think you'll have a great time. Street sweeping. Yes, in fact, it is me doing it. Wow, have I learned a lot in doing this. I apologize to all the people that get dusted as I do the street sweeping, but it's because we're so far behind the curve. Our street sweeping is getting better every single week, and I think the difference is very noticeable. So again, I apologize for any dust that it creates, but we're truly, now that we've fixed the street sweeper, we're truly getting the streets cleaned, and every time it'll be a little better. So hang in there, and it'll be good for all. Our fruit trees, I had mentioned prior that we had such a dry summer that the fruit on the trees is not good, and that's unfortunate, but maybe there's enough time for the current rains. We're scheduled to have rain today, as a matter of fact, to do them some good. I don't know personally how that works, but I know that a week ago I tried some of the fruit off of our trees, and it was pretty bad. So Maybe there'll be an upswing, but the trees are still healthy and beautiful. There just wasn't enough moisture in the ground for them to get juicy. Tree skinning. A lot of requests for that. Unfortunately, as a resort, there's no specific reason that the resort would want to have this done or would want to pay for it. Bottom line is we've set up a program with the tree trimming company where they will come and trim your tree if you want them to, but you have to pay for that. The cost runs between $50 and $80. It depends on how much skimming has to be done. Some trees still have skinning needs all the way to the bottom. Some are just up at the top. So if you're interested, there's a sign-up sheet in activities. Sign up. It will be your responsibility to pay them when they come. We're not in the middle of it. All we're trying to do is facilitate it so that we can give this list to the tree trimmers and they'll know where to go to talk to you about skinning your trees. The restaurant's open. I want to remind everybody that if you bring your ID badge, you get a 10% discount. They've done a lot of things to expand and better the restaurant. There's been a lot of focus on customer service issues and training of the wait staff. They've expanded some of the menu so there is more variety and more depth in things. Even things like the Friday fish fry has been expanded. There's more things on the menu, so give them a try and let us know what you think, because we do listen and we're trying very hard to make this a valuable and a cherished amenity for you. I also want to remind everybody that the hotel offers discounts for residents. If you have family or even friends coming in town for some period to visit you, don't forget about the hotel. Their discounts run 30% off the normal rate for any time except February. In February, they don't offer the discounts because typically the hotel's full and there's no space anyway. So, but at 30% off, this is one of the least expensive places that they can stay, and they're right here in the resort. The rooms are really nice. Of course, they have the suites, they have the hotel rooms. It's a very nice setup, and they're right here close to you. So talk to the hotel if you have somebody coming into town to visit. I think it's a pretty good deal. More to come. So we haven't finished yet. We're still doing repairs and upgrades, and I want to talk just briefly about those. Cable TV is getting additional work. We did the cable plant, so we did all of the wiring and things like that last year, and we replaced a majority of the field electronics, so the amplifiers and line extenders and all those things that are in the little green boxes all over the resort. The last thing that we have to replace are the receivers. I did an overview of what the cable plant looks like and how it works. And if you recall, we have satellite dishes up on the roof, and they feed a single receiver tuned to a specific channel for every one of the channels that you see on the TV. Each one of those comes through a dedicated receiver. These are old receivers. They're old analog equipment, very outdated. Some of them weakened from age and constant use. So we're putting in all new digital receivers, the latest and greatest that DirecTV has. So we will upgrade that entire interface coming in. Coming out of the receivers is what's called a modulator, and it takes the output from each receiver and converts it to a format that we can broadcast across the cable so that you can pick it up at your TV. Those are also old and in need of replacement, so we're replacing all of those. There's no new channels. There's nothing different. You don't get more high definition. None of that is included in this, but we expect to see a greatly improved picture for virtually all of the channels. So my fingers are crossed. It's the last step that we have in completing this upgrade. So that starts December 1st. Pool sidewalk, we've done our patching. Last year we resurfaced it with a special acid etch concrete stain, which is different than a paint. Unfortunately, we had some areas where it did chip or peel. We developed some new cracks in the sidewalk. Long story short, we've gone through and done all of the patchwork with an elastomeric patching compound that remains flexible. And the idea behind this is, as that concrete expands and contracts, remember, we had over 100 days in a row over 100 degrees this summer, so that concrete gets really hot. And in the wintertime, there are times when we may be at 40 degrees, so there's a lot of movement in the expansion and contraction. So this elastomeric patching will remain flexible so that it doesn't pull that away. And then we'll do the exact same acid etch coating over the top of that, and hopefully this time we'll get it to where it sticks in 100% of the places. It's not terrible, but it's certainly not up to the standards that we're trying to promote here. So that should start any day now. Bocce ball, we're about 3/4 of the way done with our bocce ball courts. If you've never played it, maybe you wouldn't understand all of this, but it's played with round balls on a grass surface. Well, we've had an incredibly difficult time keeping the right kind of grass in the courts, mowed to the right height, keeping the weeds out. Last year we spent over $1,000 ripping everything out, killing everything, planting new specialized grass, and before the season was out, the weeds were so bad that it was almost unplayable. So we're taking a different approach. We've purchased true golf course AstroTurf. This is not your Home Depot grass carpeting that you put on your back deck. This is real turf like they use in golf course putting greens. It's 100% weatherproof. It allows water to flow through it, and it's actually a little over, I believe it's 5/8 of an inch tall, the actual blades of grass of this turf. And the way it works is you put an underlayment, a water permeable underlayment under it, and you lay this turf on top, and then you lay sand on top of it, and that sand gets worked down into the grass to where there's only about 1/4 inch of the grass blades above that. The sand not only holds it down, it helps to keep it level. It's exactly the way they do NFL stadiums that have artificial turf. If you've ever watched an NFL football game and seen somebody slide across the field, you'll see kind of like black stuff that flies up behind them. In fact, they do the exact same thing that we do, but they use a ground rubber compound. I believe it's from old tires or something like that, that they put in those grass blades to hold that turf down. So with just the tiniest bit of luck, we'll have some of the best bocce ball courts in the valley. That program or that project is almost done. I would think we'd be done probably by next week. Potholes, our hot mix is ordered. We've already started marking and cutting. Our streets actually are not in bad shape. Being able to take care of them has really helped. But yes, there are a few potholes. We were scheduled to do this about 2 weeks ago, and then we actually had some rain. It had been too hot in the summer. When it's over 100 degrees and you have to work in 250-degree hot mix, it's just it's not reasonable for our employees. So we had to wait for it to cool off a little bit, and then immediately the rains came. So now our temperature is stabilized. By the way, we've been averaging mid 80s, beautiful, low humidity, nice breezes. It's been wonderful, and so we'll get this project done now and get it behind us. Front wall, I've talked many times that we're putting a 3-foot extension on the front wall. That's going to do two things. It's obviously going to deter even further anybody trying to climb over that wall, but it's also going to prevent or provide a noise barrier, an additional 3 feet of noise barrier between us and the highway. I don't know exactly what that's going to do, but I believe it has to have an impact, and I'm really looking forward to being able to get that put in. All of the materials are in-house and ready to go. We just made that kind of a low priority project because we just have so many other things that are use affecting in the resort. We want to get those projects done first. Watermill. This summer we've done an enormous amount of refinishing of buildings both inside and out. On the outside, we're trying to replace our plywood that's aging, has water damage in many places, and as we go through and make these repairs, we're replacing it all with hardy board. And if you're not familiar with that, hardy board is a concrete board. It's made from a fibrous material and concrete, so it's impervious to insects. It can't rot. It virtually lasts forever. It only needs to be painted on occasion. And so that's what we're using for all of this. Well, we're going to redo the outside of the watermill ice machine area that's outside by the restaurant entrance and get that back up to snuff so that it looks appealing. And you know, I try to do a lot of walkarounds, especially in the summer when I have a little more time. And to me, it didn't look like a place that I would want to get drinking water. So we're working on that, and we'll have that done very, very shortly. I had mentioned that we're changing the way the entrance is handled as far as the lanes and things like that. Well, we're actually going to do on the street marking to try to clarify that for people. So the lane closest to the guard shack will be marked for visitors. The lane beside it will be marked for residents with stickers only. And then we're going to put an arrow up at the front for arriving RVs to try to direct them to pull into the RV office parking lot and keep those lanes open. So that program will start here in a few days as well. We also have been working on disaster planning. I talked a lot about this last year. I've talked with our corporate offices. I've talked with the advisory council. I worked hand in hand with this new program we have, Helping Hands. And I also worked with the first responders. If you know Brian, he's worked with a lot of Red Cross and disasters and things like that, so he has really good insight. Long story short, we now have a plan. As soon as I do some very minor edits on it, it's in multiple parts, so we will post publicly full copies in multiple places within the resort, but you will get a resident side portion of this overall plan. And the way it works is the first section of it is what you need to do, and what you need to do before an emergency, what you need to do after an emergency. Where are the evacuation routes? What's the best way out of the resort? Who do you call if there's an emergency or there's a shelter need? And I'm not talking about our security, that's easy, but imagine that we have a tornado come through the resort. Our security is not going to be able to keep up with this, and it's important that we have all of this in your hands so that you can quickly get the help that you need. Behind that is an individual section that is a plan for what my team has to do depending upon the type of disaster. So if it were a flood, what we have to do is very different than if it was a tornado, or if it was some type of windstorm, or if it was a fire, or if it's a hazardous material spill out on the highway. There's so many different things that can happen, and this new disaster plan has step-by-step instructions for my team on what they have to do to secure the environment and help you. Long story short, I think it's a very comprehensive plan. It's probably not perfect, but it's 100 times better than what we've ever had before. Along with that, we've entered into an agreement with an emergency notification system. In my live meeting, I asked the audience if anyone could tell me where the nearest tornado siren was. Those of you who are up north probably have tornado sirens. You probably have testing on a regular basis. Well, of course, nobody could tell me, and the reason is because there are none here. Now, obviously, we're not in a heavy tornado area. That's not the issue. The issue is really that when a hurricane comes up through the Gulf, it could hit way over at Houston or Corpus or someplace like that. It's pretty rare for a direct hit to come in over us. But what we do worry about is the spin-off from that hurricane, which can spin off tornadoes. And so imagine it's 3:30 in the morning and a tornado comes through in the dark. There is absolutely no warning that the area has that would alert you that there was a problem. Well, we're taking control of that. So this new emergency notification system is multifaceted. You will have to register for it. We pay for it, but you register and you put in your contact information and your address, and then you select how you want to be notified. So let's say you're a smartphone person and you always have your smartphone with you, including by your bed at night. So maybe you will say, I want to be notified via text message, and that's the way you will be notified. Maybe you're a computer person and you want it to come via email, or you just don't like texting and you want the email on your smartphone. We can do that as well. You select email and that's the way you'll get it. Let's say you're not technical. You don't even have a computer. You don't care about it. You don't know what to do with them. For you, there's an option to select voice phone call. And what the system will do is read the message to you. It will call you on the phone and audibly read the message to you so that you get the exact same message. Bottom line is, no matter how you prefer to receive it, you can get this message. We will, right now it's in test. I have my entire team set up on it, and we're very, very pleased with it. But the weather alerts and things like that are only one facet of it. Let's go into another scenario here. Right now, I just get notice. Somebody just walked into my office and they said, we have a water break on Kingston. We're going to have to turn the water off. How do I notify anybody that there's going to be a water outage? I have only one way to do it. I tell the clerks in the front so that when you call, they can tell you that it's because of a water break. And I can put it on channel 3. And at any given point in time, there's probably less than 10% of the resort that's actually listening or watching channel 3. And even then, if you're just listening to the music and you're puttering around in the kitchen or something, you might not even see the notice come across the bottom. This system will allow me to inject emergency notices too. Now, when they come and tell me they have to turn the water off, I can immediately inject a notice that says the water is going to be turned off in the next 10 minutes on Kingston Street or in that area. It's an incredible potential here to be able to notify you. We will, have access to your contact information. I will. I shouldn't say we, but it will never be used for marketing. It has no bearing whatsoever on anything else that the resort does. When you sign up for this tool, that's the only thing it will be used for. So I'm incredibly excited about this because it has long concerned me as to how I could get in touch with people in an emergency. I think this will be very cool. And let me throw one more piece of it out there. Let's say that it's July and a severe thunderstorm comes through with some real damaging winds. That notification will go out. I would probably follow it up with a personalized notification to say Victoria Palms has suffered this type of damage, so on and so forth. But wherever you are at home, if you've selected the phone call or the text message or anything that's on your cell phone, you will still get that message in real time. There'd be no different than if you were here. So now, it took us over a day to contact everybody in the April of 2015 storm because there were so many that had damage. We had to look at the resort. We had to identify the damage. Then we had to identify from house number to resident, find out how to get in touch with them. It took a lot of time. Now, within minutes, I can notify everybody that there was a problem and what they should do. I think it's incredibly cool. No cost to you. We're paying for it. We tied all of this to first responders and helping hands, as I said, so that there's a real cogent connection here so that everything plays together. Also, there will be training coming soon. The Advisory Council has taken on the mission of training the resort residents about how to use, how to leverage, how to understand all of this documentation that we put together. So incredible, incredible, incredible. You should feel very good about the things that we're doing to make it safer for you. Last thing I wanted to talk about in this segment is there's a new lease coming out. As you're aware, all leases in Victoria Palms expire on December 31st of this year. Thus, we have sent letters both to your mailbox here on site and to the registered primary address on your record for the lease. This is telling you that there is a new lease and you have to come in preferably before December 31st to sign up for the new lease that becomes effective January 1st. Now, I know that's not possible for everybody here. We're a unique situation with remote owners and travelers and all of that, so absolutely we will give you some leeway in that. So don't panic if you get that and think, well, they're making me come to the park early so I can sign this lease. No, 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 no. And let's say you're not coming down this year. You'll see in the letter there's instructions to immediately notify us, and we'll get a copy of the lease sent to you. We can't do that for everybody, but if you're not going to be here, certainly you need to understand what's there. There's been a lot of scuttle about it. I want to reassure you that this is not some covert action on the part of ELS to undermine the things that you've had here. It's very different than anything like that. Our legal department took your previous lease, which was written by the Hines Group, and worked directly from that. Yes, there are some tweaks here and there. There's maybe some word changes that it would be hard to even identify, but in general, the lease looks like the lease before. There are 3 major changes that were done to the lease, and I'm going to tell you about those so that you know what they are and what to look for. The new lease has a lease effective date on the first page. If you've ever really looked at your old lease, on the first page it said This lease is effective, and then it had like parens, and it said, see page 19 for date. Well, on page 19, it was your signature page and the date you signed it. So let's put that into context. You buy a house on January 1st. You come over here to sign a lease, and you say, well, I'd like to have my lawyer look at that lease. Fine. We're not trying to hide anything. We give you the lease. You take it to your lawyer. You review it. Eventually, you bring it back to us on the 15th of the month. You sign it, and you date it the day you signed it. But in fact, your lease was effective on the 1st of the month because that's when you bought the property. So there was kind of a conflict there because there wasn't a separate effective date. So now the effective date will be on page 1, and there'll still be a signature page on the last with a date that you signed it. Now everything will be smooth and easy. We won't have to be asking you to change that date on the last page. It just wasn't clear that that was supposed to be a lease effective date. And I probably said too much and confused you, but so it's non-impacting for residents. It's just a better way of understanding your lease. Number 2, there are instances where you may try to sell your unit, and your potential buyer may want to move that unit out. We, per the lease, per your old lease as well, retain the right of refusal to be the first one to buy that unit. Now, we don't come to you and bid on your house and buy it outright. But if you have a contract that's a valid contract and the new purchaser wants to move the unit out, then we have the right to come in and pay you the same amount as that other contract and keep the unit here. And then we keep it on the market and try to sell it, maybe rent it, whatever the case may be. So that's what's behind this. But the issue was that the old lease, because it was a Hines lease and it was done personally, they had a checkbook sitting here on site, said that you would get paid 7 days from the time that you accepted our offer. Well, in the corporate world of ELS, that was impossible. There's so much corporate red tape, and it's got to come from this account and be moved to that account, and it's just the craziness of big business. We couldn't make 7 days, and virtually every one of these, and there hasn't been a lot, but there's been a few, we had to beg forgiveness and extend that time so that we could get the payment to the people. We weren't doing anything to delay it. We weren't dragging our feet. We just can't process money any faster than that. So the new lease says 21 working days instead of the old 7 days. And that's just so that everyone's expectations are correctly set. Third, the lease is now a 1-year lease. If you looked at your old lease, it was a 5-year lease. We're not doing that anymore. So this is a 1-year lease that auto-renews at the end of each year. 90 days before the lease expires, you will get a letter in the mail that is a combination rate notification and renewal letter. So, ever since you've been here, you've been getting a rate notification. This year, we were able to keep your rate at no increase. So, I can only hope that we can make that more than 1 year. I don't know at this point, but regardless, you always received that letter. Now, the new rate letter will also include a notification that on December 31st, the lease in its entirety will renew for another 12 months unless you tell us otherwise, and it will include the rate that will renew at. So let's say it's you're now paying $500 a month and there's no increase. This renewal letter will come in and say December 31st, 2016, your lease will automatically renew for an additional 12 months at $500 a month. So it's the way that these will work going forward. Now, not included on here is there's been some chatter in the resort. There's always, little undercurrents about things that we're going to penalize you if you don't sign a lease. That's actually not the way it works. And, everything that we do is heavily scrutinized by legal teams and Texas law and, all of those things. We're not penalizing you. The way it works is consider that you go to Costco and you buy a 3-gallon jar of peanut butter, for lack of something better. You get that at a reduced price per gallon because you're buying multiple gallons. You're buying a large container of it, so the price per ounce is less. Well, that's exactly the way a lease works. When you come to me and say, I want to rent 12 months, not 1 month, we give you an annual rate that is significantly below the month-to-month rate. And so if you should choose that you don't want to be bound by a lease, that just means that you don't get that annual rate. You're going to revert to the rack rate. Well, that's when the next problem came in. We actually don't have a rack rate for annuals. We probably will somewhere down the road. So the way this is being implemented right now is that your rent will go to its current rate plus $100 each month. And again, that's not a penalty. That's reverting away from the discount that you get for being an annual. And by the way, if the concern is, well, if I don't sign a lease, then I don't have to obey to the rules, actually, that's not true either. Texas law says that if you do not renew your lease, you become month-to-month tenancy, is the way it's actually written, which means that you lose your ability to have an annual discount, and you still are required to adhere to all of the rules and tenets that are in your previous lease. You get no waiver just because you didn't sign a lease. We're not trying to twist your arm to sign a lease for any covert reason. It's simply because when you have a lease, you get a discount, and we know what our income is going to be for the next 12 months. From that, we can budget for repairs and maintenance and things like that, and we have a forecast that goes to the company. Remember that we are a publicly traded company, and it's critical that we be able to provide these forecasts for our shareholders. So please understand, there's nothing under the table going on here. It's just a new lease. I think it's clearer. It's only a 12-month lease, and it's pretty easy to get through. The last thing I want to say is we encourage you to thoroughly review your new lease before signing. I've watched many people come in here and they think, it's boilerplate, I'll read it later. I've done that myself in other instances. But I do suggest that you read through it. Even if you skip over the boilerplate, and there's a lot of that comes right out of Texas law. I understand you can't change it, so, why bother? But there are things in there that you should understand. Late fees and what your grace period is and things like that. That's all very clearly laid out in the lease. And so I encourage you to read it. And if you have questions, bring it back, and either someone here in the office or I personally will answer. And if I can't answer sufficiently, then we'll get somebody from corporate to answer. I want you to be comfortable that this is just process. There's nothing else. So that's it for this section. After you take a break and get rested a little bit, I would encourage you to go on to section 2, and we'll cover a bit more there. Thank you.